Hello. If you've ever wanted to tackle a pruning job, but you don't have the confidence or you think, man, I need a professional, that's really not always the case. I'm Scott from Gardenworks, and I just want to give you a quick introduction to pruning, just give you a little bit of a sense of how simple it can be if you just keep it simple. I'm going to try and stick to sort of the principles of threes on this pruning. So the first thing I want to do is tell you, there's really a number of reasons to prune, but the three main reasons to prune would be for plant health in general, to control the size or the appearance of a shrub, and for fruit or flower production. So mainly we'll talk about what you do in general rather than be very specific about those. There's also, I guess, three really main tools we use for pruning, and they're all used for different things and related to how big a branch is. So we have hand secateurs or hand pruners. These guys here, these are Coronas, and they're used for branches that are up to about maybe a 1/4 inch, maybe a little bit bigger than that in diameter. And they're very easy to control. You keep them sharp, and they're pretty wicked. The next size up would be a pair of long-handled pruners or loppers. Very similar. These are both bypass types, which are really the best. That's what I was brought up in and went to school. We talked about the bypass pruners as being the best. And so these will do much bigger diameter branches, up to, say, 1 inch in diameter, maybe not quite that much. Depends a little bit on your strength, and also depends on the kind of plant. Some plants have a much harder wood than others. And the third kind that I would talk about, and these come in various lengths, including on a pole, and this is a pruning saw. And pruning saws are, of course, for anything bigger than 1 inch, and for the smallest things, they'll go through that really quickly. Pretty neat thing about pruning saws, and I wanted to tell you the difference between a pruning saw and a carpenter saw or hand saw. The teeth are facing backwards or towards you on a pruning saw, and the idea there is when you cut, you're pulling instead of pushing. On a hand saw, when you push, you cut. And when you pull, you cut. And so when you're reaching up and pulling the branch or cutting a branch on a tree or shrub, when you pull down, it'll cut. That's the beauty of it. And a bit of a coarser teeth on it too, so that the cutting goes a little quicker, because you don't need it to be a perfectly beautiful piece of furniture in the end. So those are the three things you'd use for pruning. If you only have to prune small things, usually a pair of hand secateurs will be good. There's 3 times when you can prune, sticking to the rule of threes. You can prune in the summer, and pruning in the summer mainly consists of pruning for light maintenance, cleaning up, tidying, removing bits and pieces. Or the second time you can prune is in the dormant season, really dormant season of winter. And that's when you do your major pruning. You do that to remove, the bigger limbs. And the late part of the dormant season I really feel is best, because there's active growth pretty quickly after that, which is great. The reason for that is the active growth will help the plant start to heal over more quickly over your pruning cuts. So that's really a critical part of that. The third time you would prune is for shrubs or trees that bloom in early spring, on old season's growth or the previous year's growth. You don't want to prune them before they bloomed, if blooming is the whole reason to be. So things like a forsythia, for example, those you would prune after they bloom in the later part of the spring. Let's talk about the 3 guiding principles of pruning that I've sort of put them together in 3 to make it simple. The first is the 3 Ds. That's removing dead, damaged, or diseased wood. It's pretty simple, and you can do that pretty much any time, because you never want to leave damaged or diseased wood on a plant. So when you see it, you can prune it out. The second one is to remove if you're heading something back, which is what you'll do, taking back a branch only part way, prune it back by about 1/3. That's convenient because it fits into the threes. No more than 1/3 normally, and it could be a little less than 1/3 if you want. The third one is also a third rule, and that is when you want to thin a plant out, never remove more than about 1/3 of the material, and usually less. So dead, damaged, and diseased, head back by 1/3, and thin by 1/3. The the next little bit to sort of approach, and these are all just good things to keep you on the straight and narrow, I guess, as you're pruning. There's some do's and don'ts. One do is to prune on an angle. So you would want to make your pruning cut on an angle, and just above a branch that's outward facing or a bud that's outward facing. That's pretty straightforward, but it's amazing how many times you'll see a cut that's a blunt cut. The second do or don't is don't use pruning paste, even if it's a bigger pruning cut. The plant has its own biological, physiological ability to heal over, especially if you pruned it properly. Don't leave a stub. Prune it and don't cut flush to a trunk where you've gone past the branch bark collar. So you know, it's easier if you see that, but those are the do's and don'ts. And then the third thing, don't over prune. Use some restraint. You don't need to go crazy and prune the heck out of something. If you do, plants generally respond to pruning by putting out a lot of vigorous growth. And if your goal is to control the size of the plant, then by pruning really hard, you'll push a lot of new growth, and you may get into a vicious cycle of that, of where it's just growing like crazy, you're pruning like crazy, it's growing like crazy, and you never get ahead. So use some restraint. There are 3 more things I'd like you to keep in mind when you're pruning. Some plants, you know, they benefit from a specific pruning approach. Things like lavenders or hydrangeas or roses, many dogwoods, all those kind of plants, they really do have a specific approach. So it doesn't hurt to do a little research. The key is if you're out in your garden, you don't know what it is, you'll have to find out. So you might need a little help. You can give us a call, or better yet, take a picture, email it to us, or bring in a little sample so we can identify it for you so you know what you're doing. And then you can look into it. I wanted to talk about an organization called Plant Amnesty. It's out of Washington State, and it was founded by a woman named Cass Turnbull, who is absolutely amazing. And it's really all about pruning properly, not pruning plants and torturing them, they'll say, in that sort of the amnesty came from. So you can check that out online. And tons of great videos, YouTube videos, tons of great information on pruning specific ornamental trees and shrubs. And the third one is be patient. Be patient with your pruning. You don't have to do it fast. Once you've made a cut, it's done. It's kind of like getting a haircut. You know, you don't want to cut your hair too short. So just be patient and take your time, and you'll get it right. And don't be scared, because it's easy enough to prune. Plants are really, really resilient, and they'll come back from a lot of abuse. But you don't want to give them the abuse if you don't have to. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to our YouTube channel for lots of great videos. And check out our website and the tip sheets we have on there, which cover subjects like pruning, as well as many other subjects, seed starting, and all sorts of good stuff.